Okay, so now we are here at the end of the French Revolution, Part 3. It's not really the end because they're going to revolt, there's going to be Napoleon, but like, it's the end of the videos for it at least. Okay, so the king is dead. He is gone. So is Marie Antoinette. And it's over. And so, what do we do? Well, so the issue here is that Paris is also going to mess this up a little bit. See, the people of Paris kind of feel a little bit differently about everything. They kind of were often a part of it. They were almost like a state within a state. They were actually led by a group known as the Commune, and they were definitely more radical. So they were like totally like pro, let's get rid of the king. And a lot of them didn't like the new party system because they felt that the Girondins should not be trusted because many voted not to kill the king. And so at one point they actually attack the proceedings, the commune forces, attack the proceedings of the National Convention and arrest a bunch of Girondin leaders. And then the mountains have full control to hammer out, I guess now we need another constitution. Super. Oh, but wait, there's more. While all this goes on, a region of France who really loved the king and who was kind of a little bit different culturally, the Vendée, remember, they had revolted prior during other rulers' reigns, and so they're going to try to revolt again as well. And the cities of Lyon and Marseille were also thinking about leaving because they want to kind of do their own thing just like Paris does. So it's all sorts of crazy. And then while all that is going on, Prussia, Austria, and the Netherlands are going to attack them with possible aid as well from Spain and Portugal. So the National Convention realizes they need to calm everything down. They need to mobilize as many men as they can. And so they're going to basically create a new executive branch in order to do this. And it is called the Committee of Public Safety. And it's going to be their job to carry out the ideas of the National Convention. And the guy that is going to be the head of that is a man on the top left there who is just a fantastic name, Maximilien Robespierre. And it sounds great. He's actually completely awful in just a variety of different ways. But we'll talk about some good and we'll also talk about some not so good. Now, there was another man that was very much in kind of like his right-hand man, is a man by the name of Louis Saint-Just, maybe. Let's just say his nickname was the Angel of Death. He basically, they want like a democratic type government, but anything against the government was seen as a threat, and the only way to deal with that threat was through violence. One of his quotes is that since the French people has manifested its will, everything opposed to it is outside the sovereign. Whatever is outside the sovereign is the enemy. So that's gonna kind of be the idea. Either you're all full bore on this like radical revolution now, or you're our enemy, and that's gonna get a little dicey. However, the one thing they are going to be able to do quite remarkably is mobilize an army. At one point, they will, in less than 1 year, they draft 650,000 men, so that's in 1792. By 1794, they have 1.1 million men, and they just straight hammer everybody. Okay, and the idea is they have this wonderful national army, okay, that you are fighting, and modern day as well. What's happening here is that these are now national armies that are nations fighting each other. We don't have dynasties fighting each other. It's all about the people. And in many ways, this does start to unify the governments in these areas as well. And if you see here, the French do quite well. You know, they take a chunk out of the Austrian Netherlands. They actually set up some states as like kind of puppet states, if you will. Some areas they occupy. They basically dominate all of Italy. They take over the Ligurian Republic, which is actually known as Corsica. Hey, that's where Napoleon's from. Good times. It's pretty Impressive. Okay, and the French even cut some deals with Austria, like, well, we'll give you some land over here. You see this area. And so, with all this craziness, it is beyond absurd that the French army still keeps winning, but they do. It's incredible. And so, okay, so what is the whole Committee of Public Safety and or the general policies of Robespierre? Well, the committee itself is made up of 12 men, and their general duties is to keep order and carry out the will of the National Directory. And basically, the whole idea here is that they have to enforce things. And here's an idea, here's a quote from Robespierre, who either by their conduct, their contacts, their words, or their writings showed themselves to be supporters of tyranny or enemies of liberty, or who have not constantly manifested their attachment to the revolution, is probably going to die here. They actually refer to this as the terror. Okay, so the whole idea is like, you're going to accept this republic or we're going to kill you. See, the Committee of Public Safety was given a tremendous amounts of power, and they basically run amok with it. And the main thing, or the main method of death, is the guillotine. You will have trials that take place in a single day. I've seen estimates of 50,000 to 75,000 people are killed via guillotine. And this was a new invention at the time. And all executions were public, as were the trials. And there were many famous people that were executed because they felt that they, if they suspected you had anything to do with either the king or anything that was not this new empire, they were going to kill you. Okay, Marie Antoinette, Olympe de Gouges, or de Gouges, the woman who was trying to fight for women's rights and said that she was against the government, mainly because they weren't giving rights to women, they're going to kill her. Many sans-culottes, they'll kill them. Or I'm sorry, not sans-culottes, they'll kill the people who spoke out against the sans-culottes, because they were the radicals. And guys like Antoine Laurent Lavoisier, we'll talk about him. He's the founder of modern-day chemistry. He basically made the periodic table. We killed him too. Like, it's just everybody dies. Now, they will deal with the rebels pretty harshly, okay? Once they defeat, all those foreign enemies, they will reconquer Marseille and Lyon. They will execute thousands. What's actually crazy is that, and when they do it, it's like they line them in front of mass graves and then hit them, like they fire cannon, like at point blank range at them to kill them. It's just awful. I used this picture already, but that's cool because it's still utter destruction. Vendée, they just kill everybody. 42% of the people that the terror killed were from the region of Vendée. And so they are now in full control. Now, the other idea was this concept of the Republic of Virtue. So the whole idea is it's all about France. So they're going to establish price controls to settle down food prices. They call the law of general maximum. It did fail, but they were trying to stabilize the economy a bit, and we'll talk about how that ends up happening in the future. Women were still primarily discriminated upon. They really weren't supposed to be in politics. However, they would do things like they would ban women's clubs. Women were not allowed really to do much in the way of public. And here's a quote, that really sums it up. Since when is it considered normal for a woman to abandon the pious care of her home, the cradle of her children, to listen to speeches in the public forum? So once again, ladies, not so much. They will also really they were very anti-Christian as well. Even though many people still remain Catholic, because again, that was a challenge to their centralized power. So they will do things like they will remove saints from street names, churches would be pillaged and closed, priests were encouraged to marry and leave the priesthood. For instance, the Cathedral of Notre Dame, if you look on the right, this is actually a drawing of the inside of the Cathedral of Notre Dame. So they covered everything up and put a big statue of Reason there. It was now called the Temple of Reason. and other things. Like, it's all about France. Now there would be some things like modes of address, like they were trying to eliminate the classes and nobility. I mean, that's actually a pretty good idea. But then they would do like bizarre stuff, like they rename their calendar. Like each now month, what there were let me make sure I have it right. So the new calendar was going to be based on, like, New Year was September 22nd when the Committee of Public Safety was created, and that was the French Republic. So when they did it, it was in year 2. There were 12 months with 3 10-day weeks. They had no more Sabbath, no more religious holidays, and they renamed the months based on, like, agricultural ideas. So you see the names Vendemer, Brumaire, Frimaire, Nivos, Pluvios, blah, 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 blah. Just bizarre. So when's my birthday? Okay, I would have been born in Germinal, so that's exciting. Um, and basically, I will say something that's good. Abolition of slavery will start to kind of pick up momentum. The Haitian Revolution is going to play a role in that, because the Haitian Revolution is going to break out around this time as well and will last into the Napoleonic period. And we'll talk about the Haitian Revolution later and its kind of influence on France as well. But by this time, they're starting to have some cracks in the committee. The committee was going after Catholicism too much, and people didn't like that. The calendar was very confusing, and people start to question this group. And so finally, they just out and out will go after them, because what ends up happening is that they just get a little bit crazy. They start trying to oppress, like, everybody. The trials are too fast, and the committee then starts to target members of the National Convention, and people were not having that, because basically Robespierre became obsessed, and he became paranoid, and there are rebels everywhere, and there are people against us everywhere, and we must root them all out. And so eventually he is arrested, as you see here. Him and Louis Saint-Just, here is Robespierre. They will all be executed. There will be a small part of the army that tries to break him out in jail when he's in there, but because that's the one group that actually had success underneath him. But nonetheless, he is arrested on July 28, 1794, and executed the same day. Now, I will say there was some positive impacts. Of course, the huge and successful army, centralized power in the government. It does calm things down a little bit more, especially when they stop chopping everybody's heads off. And also, this, the national identity of being French is really a thing. So now we are going to reestablish another constitution. What are we on, like number 16 at this point? And so what we need to do is reestablish order. The terror is ended. Jacobin clubs are actually outlawed. They reopened churches. Okay, actually in 1795, the National Convention will officially pass a resolution that allows all religions. They'll pull back on economic regulations. And this group called the Directory is going to start to pick up some pace here. And so they are now going to create a new constitution. Okay, so we have, this is now August of 1795. There is a 2-chamber legislature. Okay, you have the lower house, which is called the Council of 500. Okay, this is 2/3 of that group was actually from the National Assembly, because they still like power. Paris tries to fight against it, but it's interestingly enough put down by Napoleon. Their job, okay, is to basically create laws, okay, and then what happens is you have the Council of Elders, which is a 250-person organization that they are married and widowed men over the age of 40. And their job was to debate and then pass or reject the laws that the National Assembly created. They are elected by electors, who actually had to be owners or renters of property worth 1 and 200 days' labor, which meant the electors was only 30,000, so we still have voting issues. And once again, the electors are chosen by active citizens, who are now all male taxpayers over the age of 21. And so once again, male taxpayers over the age of 21, they elected electors who then selected the Council of Elders. Okay, the lower house was actually voted upon by the active citizens as well. Okay. And then the executive was the directory. Okay, they were 5 directors that were elected by the Council of Elders, created from a list that was created by the Council of 500. I don't have a picture of any of that, so I like lightsabers, so like why not? And this group will control the army as well as carry out the laws passed by the Council of Elders. So let's repeat here, okay? So the directory is the executive, and their job is to enforce the legislation. The legislation is proposed by the Council of 500, okay, which was made up of mostly members of, they're all men, mostly members of the National Convention, and that's elected by the by active citizens. Then you have a Council of Elders, which was 250 people. Their job was to debate and then pass or reject the laws from the Council of 500. They, Council of Electors, are voted in by electors who were selected by the active citizens. And then the Council of Elders appointed the directory from a list created by the Council of 500. Now, we still have some issues here, okay? There were still royalists and Jacobins who aren't going to go away. The economic situation still isn't really good. And in all honesty, the only thing that kept them in power was the fact that they controlled the army. Women still don't have any rights either. However, shockingly enough, if the only way that you're kept in power is by the army, it leaves you very susceptible to, say, a coup from a super popular general. So at this point, we do have another constitution. It seems like we have a constitutional government. It's relatively limited voting rights, but we're kind of getting better. But this is going to be open, and Napoleon is coming. Okay, guys, so that does it for our French Revolution videos. We'll be getting into Napoleon soon. Take care.